Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the third training webinar from Travis Association for the Blind in partnership with Northwest Hills Eye Care. My name is Thomas Stivers. I'm kind of the MC for our presentations. This week, we are going to be talking about Android, tips and tricks for getting started with Android and really making the best of your Android smartphone. With us today, we have Dan Hart, who is our Android expert. We have Aaron Hoffman, who's one of our adaptive technology instructors. He's also a pretty proficient Android user. We have Isa Kamara, who has used a variety of different Android phones, and he's going to speak to the differences that you may find between different phones. We have Angie Hall, who is helping kind of on the back end, managing the screen share. And we have Yvonne Guzman, who is going to, if you're using Android and are trying to sort of consider Android versus iOS, she's going to provide sort of the iOS perspective to if people have questions about Android versus the iPhone. Quick housekeeping details before we get started. If you would like to ask a question, please either do that in the text chat and we will get to your questions at the end of the presentation, or raise your hand and we will unmute you and get to your questions also at the end of the presentation. We do request that if you're going to ask a question by voice, you wait until we call for questions at the end. With that, I'm going to open the floor to Dan Hart, who is going to, one more detail I forgot to mention. To raise your hand on the computer, press Alt-Y. If you're on a phone, calling in from a telephone, press *9. To mute or unmute yourself, press Alt-A if you're on the computer, or *6 if you're dialing in from a telephone. All right, thank you so much. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Dan.
All righty. Good evening, everybody. My name's Dan Hart. I'm an accessibility specialist here at Travis Association for the Blind. For myself, I've been an avid Android user for going on 10, 11 years now. Anybody that's familiar with the Android ecosystem, Google used to name their operating system releases after different candies and treats and whatnot. So when I started, it was actually with one called frozen yogurt, or commonly known as Froyo. And there's been a recent change in Google. They have now gone to just a normal, if you will, naming convention. This last Android version was Android 10. A little bit of history there. Android 10 was actually going to be a treat or something named with Q, and for as long as I've used Android, that was the question everyone had, is what on earth are they going to call a Q? Well, they dodged that bullet. So so let's kind of go over a few things. There's several different items that are built into your Android devices. First thing, get the most out of Google Assistant. Google Assistant is going to be your default artificial intelligence, similar to Siri on the Apple platform. And with your Google Assistant, you can do an awful lot of things with your phone. Now, my phone, being that Android supports multiple different manufacturers, mileage will vary between LG, Samsung, Motorola, Kyocera, as well as some of the Google Pixel devices. So some of your mileage will vary. I myself have a Samsung Note 10 Plus. So everything that I have is definitely within the Samsung ecosystem. Similar to like Siri, you can say, let me see if I can get my phone on here. Okay, Google, read my text messages. Okay. Okay, Google. Should be reading. I think this is one of those famous hiccups. Okay, Google. Read my text messages. It is not wanting to do this now all of a sudden. It was working earlier. I think it's Murphy's Law. Okay, Google. Read my text messages. Okay, I got it to come up. Okay, Google. Okay, Google. Okay, one more time. Okay, Google. Okay, so okay, Google does not want to work right now for some reason, and I'm not sure why. On the Samsung devices, you have what's called Bixby. Bixby is another artificial intelligence out there that the Samsung environment has built. Both Google Assistant and your Bixby Assistant are both very, very similar. And my Bixby just got tagged, so similar to, hi Bixby, read my text messages.
There are 20 messages found. Message is from Angie Hall at 1758. Technical issues. Online with Mike. G, do you want to hear more?
No. So it will tell you any unread messages. Okay, Google will do the same thing as your Hi Bixby will. It will read out all of your unread text messages. You can also ask, okay, Google. Let me see, give my Google Assistant a chance, one more chance here. Okay, Google. Hi, Bixby. What date is 4 weeks from today?
4 weeks from today will be on Tuesday, June 30th.
So if you're trying to plan a particular date, if you need to know a date within the next few weeks, you can ask your assistant to do the same thing. Something else that you can do, hi Bixby, good morning.
Hey there. If I can help with something, just let me know.
Okay, Google. My Google Assistant is not wanting to work. Let me try one more thing here. Good morning.
Hi, Dan. The time is 6:37 p.m. Right now in Taylor it's 87 degrees and partly cloudy. The forecast tonight is 77 degrees and partly cloudy. Have a great day. Let's get started with your evening news update. By the way, if you want to hear more from a particular source, you can add it in the Google Assistant app. Look for news under settings. First up, I have today's top headlines. This is ABC News. From ABC.
So I'll go ahead and stop it from there. Now, what you can do is you can set up a myriad of different things to happen when you're using either your Bixby or your Google Assistant. You can set up different things to happen when you give it certain audio cues. So right there, I finally got my Google Assistant to work. You can ask your assistants, how far is it to the nearest pizza place? How far is it to the nearest barbecue? What do you recommend for Mexican food that's close? You can do different things like that with both your Google Assistant as well as your Bixby Assistant as well on, and I just set her off again. When you're traveling around, you can ask for what's around you and it'll list off different things that are around you. So that's a little bit about the built-in artificial intelligence. One artificial intelligence I do not have installed on my phone and I don't have ready to demo right now, but you can download the Alexa app and you can utilize your commands that you would on your Amazon Echoes, on your Android device as well. You can interact with your different applications such as Audible, Amazon Prime, different things like that as well. With that being said, there's a lot, you can see that there's a lot of different things that you can do on your phone, on your Android device, similar to what you can do with your iOS devices. With that being said, I'd like to turn it over real quick to Mr. Aaron Hoffman. We do offer some Android classes, and Aaron will give you a brief overview of our Android syllabus. Aaron?
Thank you, Dan. Here at TAB, we have many classes available. One of the classes we have is called Foundations of Android, and it's a class that spans 3 levels, which is beginner, intermediate, and advanced. And these classes are taught 1 month for each course, and each course is split over 2 periods every week for a 1 hour course. We have either Monday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, Thursday, and they're for 1 hour each. And during each class, we'll go over a few concepts. We have about 50 points we'd like to hit for all 3 levels. And we will drill on certain practices. We'll have quizzes and do a little bit of theory near the end just to make sure you're ready for the exams. We have real world examples for all of the tasks we have. So it's not just book knowledge. We start our classes, we'll have our basic, what is Android, what is Google, turning on the phone, turning off, basic 8 gestures, double tap, long press, drag rotates and such. Then we'll get into searching, voice assistant, typing, dictation. In our second month, we'll come up to installing, re-downloading applications, and how to take and receive calls, texts, contact lists. What do you do if you have an inaccessible application, how to manage around that, and adding email accounts. And then in the third month, we get a little technical with security settings, spam and phishing attacks, how to protect against some social engineering with Android, against Android, and just ways to protect your phone, or optimizing your battery life, SD cards, resetting the phone or restoring the phone. So some more of the advanced things you can do with it. And each class, it's 1 hour long, and we have about 8 classes per level, we'll say. And so our offerings. So I'll send it back to you.
All right, very good, Aaron. Thank you very much. Greatly appreciate that.
And this is Angie. I want to interject really fast here. I know we had some questions over on the side for the classes, but I wanted to mention before we get further into it, all of our classes that we provide and discuss during any webinars are provided free. So please get Aaron's information that's included on this webinar here, so you can arrange a class schedule with him and our instructors for any type of, whether it's MS Word, iOS, or Android. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Cool, very good. Thank you, Angie. Thank you very much. Alrighty, so we'll talk about some general accessibility settings here. On your Android devices, you can go into your accessibility settings by visiting, going into your applications, your application drawer, going to settings, and then going to accessibility. I've used Samsung, LG, and I've also played with the Kyocera device. All of these devices, you can go into your apps, settings, accessibility. From there, things do get a little bit different from manufacturer to manufacturer. Some of them put a little bit of a spin on these settings, and most of the settings are there between the different manufacturers. So the main screen reader that you can get on an Android device is Talkback. Talkback is, it's come a long ways in a very short time, the last couple of years, in my opinion. When you look at the history of Android, the first release that actually mentions accessibility when they really started to recognize and work on Android would be in about 2013 to 2014 with the release of Jelly Bean, which was quite a while ago. That was about 6 or 7 releases ago. Ever since then, Google has recognized that they had a lot of catching up to do with Apple and iOS. Quite frankly, the Apple ecosystem really beat Android to the punch as far as accessibility, and Android has had to play a lot of catch up in that area. They have made a lot of good strides in the last couple of years. So Talkback is going to be the screen reader similar to your VoiceOver on your iOS. When you are using a Samsung device, you have another screen reader that you can use. You can also use Voice Assistant, and Talkback and Voice Assistant are very, very similar. Some of the gestures are a little bit different, and it comes down to using both of them and seeing which one suits you better, which one you're able to use better. For some of the gestures and some of the flicks, you may not be able to do. If you have some kind of motor skill issue with your hands, maybe your voice assistant's gestures will work a little bit better for you. So you have a couple of different choices that you can choose there. Magnification, I use a combination of both the voice assistant talkback and magnification. Magnification is where you are able to do a triple tap with a single finger, and that turns your magnification gestures on. You can pinch in and out, and you can also pan around with 2 fingers. You can kind of move around the screen to magnify what's on your desktop. There is a feature called magnifier window, which is, it acts like an electronic magnifying glass where it only puts a little square on your screen, and you can move that around with your finger, and you can drag that around, and you can magnify whatever it is that you would like to be able to magnify on your desktop. Alrighty, so shortcuts for quick accessibility access. This is where it gets a little bit tricky on some of the Android devices. Coming from the Samsung point of view, there's something that's called direct access. Direct access allows you to set up a direct access to a particular feature that you would like to turn on at that point in time. So for instance, you can hit your volume up and down keys on the side of your device, and it will turn Talkback on, or in this case, Voice Assistant. Oops, gotta unlock my phone. Try that one more time. So I'm gonna press my up and down volume keys. So there it just turned Voice Assistant on. Now you can also hit the up and down keys to turn Voice Assistant off or Talkback off, and it just turned it off. That's a really easy way. If you don't use it all the time, it's a really easy way for you to turn it on and off very, very quickly. You can also use your volume up and Bixby keys to turn your something like your invert colors on and off. I use that quite frequently. Being that the web is what it is, not all websites are good for contrast. So I'm constantly turning my invert colors on and off. Those particular features can be turned on, again, on your Samsung devices. They can be turned on under settings, accessibility, and there's an advanced settings section for you to be able to turn on these particular direct access settings. So from here, let's see here. So we've already gone over your direct access there. So now we'll go into some of the Talkback specific features. Okay, the Talkback, when you are in your accessibility and you're looking at screen reader, both Talkback and your voice assistant will have tutorials that will walk you through the various gestures and through the various ways to use these screen readers. It's a little bit tricky to get used to. Similar to VoiceOver, you have your touch to explore, and the device will, whatever you have turned on as far as Talkback or Voice Assistant, will read out whatever you drag your finger over. So I'm going to turn my voice assistant or my Talkback on. Turn up the volume. There we go. So now I'm going to drag my finger over my home screen. That's my Baylor Scott and Weiss. There's Paycom. That's something that we use at work. There's my Chrome. And it's telling you that once you have your item activated on your screen, you can double tap it and it will open it up. Blue Mail is an email app that I use, and we'll go over that here in just a little while. So you can also flick with your finger. So if I flick to the right, it should read, okay, it goes to Chrome. And see there, it's actually going through the different icons that are on my home screen in the order that I have them on. So it's similar to how VoiceOver works. Might be just a little bit different, but it's all in what you get used to and what you would like to use. Similar in voice to the VoiceOver rotor. Taryn did a great job last time explaining the VoiceOver rotor. I've never been able to quite grasp it, but it's going to be the same in Talkback. You can swipe up and to the right, and what that will do is that will open up a global menu. What the global menu allows you to do is it allows you to go in and it will allow you to change things like your voice, your verbosity, speech rate, pitch, volume, and whatnot. And I believe if you go swipe down and to the right, that opens up a local menu that allows you to, if you're on a web page, that allows you now to go through and now navigate via headers, links, paragraphs that you can do on a web page. Something that Talkback does do that, say, Voice Assistant does not allow you to do, and that's to customize some of your gestures. So if you are constantly using a particular gesture, if you're used to, say, flicking up for something, you can set flicking up to be, say, open up the global context menu. If you're constantly using that global context menu, you can change those gestures around a little bit. The only caveat to that is now if you pick up another device, you now have to go back to using the default way that the device is set up, or you may be able to set it up the way that you need to if it's a second device. But changing between different devices does make, the more you customize, kind of the more difficult it is to change between different devices. I myself do have several things set up and customized on my phone, and it does make it a little bit hard to go back to a stock Android device or the way a stock Android device is set up, because I tend to forget those stock gestures. So with that flexibility, there are some drawbacks and some complexities there that we do have to consider. Let's see here. So we have one thing here that I also want to draw your attention to is different Android devices and different manufacturers. There are different instances of different settings and different applications even. Issa Camera, our vocational services specialist, he has had some very recent experiences with running two completely different devices. Issa, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you to go over maybe some of the little quirks that you've seen between, I believe you've got a Kyocera device and you've got a Samsung device there that you've noticed some differences in. So I'll turn it over to you there, Issa.
Yes, hello, my name is Issa Kamra. I'm a vocational specialist over here at the Travelers Association for the Blind. Yes, using different devices is a learning curve, and you'll find out different devices are not capable as good as other devices. But I don't really use
Navigate up button.
Talkback too much.
Home screen.
As you can hear, I'm using it now.
Voice assistant.
but I still have quite a bit of vision. So what helps me, I like to use white backgrounds mess with my eyesight, so I need to invert my colors. And a good thing to know, a lot of these different features that you can do with your Android device, you also can have a shortcut menu to access the device quickly. So if you had like my phone, I have a real old phone, I have a Note 5, which seems to be better than this 2020 Kyocera. But I don't have Talkback. I have voice assistant. That's how old it is, I guess. But one thing I know that was helpful for me and people at different ages is that in your accessibility menu, there's a easy mode feature. The easy mode feature enlarges your icons. So you'll have less icons on one page. They'll be real huge. And then it puts a shortcut for your magnifier on there. And when it's a magnifier, it's not to magnify to zoom into your screen. It's to utilize your phone as a CCTV. And I used to use a Pico that I was in love with back in the day. But since I have my Note 5 and I had a Galaxy S and now I'm using a Kyocera, which does not have this feature, it allows me to use it as a CCTV. When my son played football at the high school, I would utilize it so I can see my son play on the field because it's more steadier than the actual camera. I would use it to help me see street signs, to see what bus route number it was. So there's a lot of different things, and the easy mode does work well. Like my mother, she's not that great with technology. So when you put it on easy mode, it kind of dumbs it down for you as well. I'm okay with technology, but I like it to be dumbed down sometimes to make it easier for me to use. Another, like I said, I use the negative colors or invert colors, but I don't utilize it all the time. Sometimes I need it off. Sometimes I need it on. But if I triple tap my home button, it'll come on when I need it or it'll go off when I need it. So like sometimes people are hesitant to use different features because it seems to be a hassle sometimes to go back in the settings and find it. Where did I find that feature? How did I get to it? How do I access it? And usually they will have a lot of options for you to save it to a shortcut accessibility menu. So right now, I don't really use Talkback too much, but sometimes certain things are very hard for me to read, and I don't like zooming in a lot, like if I'm looking at an email or a certain app. So I do utilize that touch to speak, and that allows me to, now it has a little icon on the bottom right when you have it activated. So if I have it activated, I just tap the bottom right, and then I put my finger wherever I want it to read.
Voice assistant help. Dark screen. Keep the screen turned off at all times for privacy. Double press the power key to turn this function on or off. Off. Rapid key input. Use the keyboard and keypad more easily by tapping keys once instead of double tapping. Off. Speak passwords.
Now, I didn't go all the way down to speak passwords, so it didn't give you the information for speak passwords. But if I just wanted for the information about speaking passwords, then I go over it with my finger and then it would give you the
Set your device to
information.
read the characters aloud as you enter your passwords. Before entering passwords, connect headphones or go to private locations so that passwords cannot be heard by others.
Now, you hear my voice, my screen reader doesn't sound that well. Like I said, my phone is a Note 5 and they're already on a Note 10. It's a pretty old phone. It's so old that it's paid for. So I really don't want to buy another phone, but it works so well with me. And hopefully to get the Note 10 one day when my boss, Angie Hall, gives me a raise. So just laugh, Angie.
No comment. Next topic. Go ahead.
Yes. So now iPhones, Apple, they have a lot of different cool features, but I am accustomed to my Android and I'm kind of stuck on it. I don't want to learn something completely different now. I'm always on the go. I'm learning new things, and I don't want to learn something else. So that's why Android works for me. But the best things to get familiar with are the shortcut keys. And if you have an Android phone and you're new to being blind, the easy mode is very helpful. It is very helpful. I have a bad background on mine right now. For those who can't see, I will allow the video. I don't know if you can see it, but you can see how large my icons are if you're able to see my video.
So you've got 3 icons wide by 4 icons tall on your screen there.
Yes. So that makes it easier for me to see, so I don't have to read. Is that my play movies? I have a big picture to go by, which helps you. You start learning how to see things and do things in a different way to make life easier on you. So I'll give it back to you, Dan.
Alrighty, excellent. Some great topics. There's some great information there, Issa. Thank you very much. One of the cruxes to Android, I will be one of the first ones to say, is Android is extremely flexible. Something out there called launchers, you are able to set up your phone and you are able to really customize your phone to the way that you want. Samsung has their own launcher. It's called One UI. One of the most popular, if not the most popular launcher out there is called Nova Launcher. That's what I use. Very customizable and very, very easy to use. It's very, very blind friendly, very easy to customize your desktop there. Another launcher is called Apex Launcher. Now, this may be kind of foreign if you have an iOS background. This may be kind of foreign because on iOS, the way that you interact with your device, that's the way Apple has designed it. The way that Apple was designed was that you can pick up an iPhone and everybody's iPhone, all iPhones are the same. It's a little bit different with Android. That's, again, that's some of the little tweaks and some of the little quirks with Android is that you pick up somebody. If I pick up Issa's phone, he uses that easy mode. I use Nova Launcher. So there's some subtle differences there between how the different devices work. So we'll go over a couple of apps real quick. I tried to pick out a few things that were similar to what we went over in our iOS webinar a couple weeks ago. First place, Google Lens. Google Lens is the same thing as Seeing AI. It allows you to scan barcodes on different items and it will tell you what that item is. It works. I have tried it on several of the HEB products I have in my house and it reads those out just fine. It doesn't give you prices. It just says, hey, this is HEB cereal bar apple flavor, I think is the exact wording that it used on those. You can also point your camera at different items around your room. For instance, I pointed it at my desk at work, and on my phone, on my desk, there's a Logitech keyboard, and it actually picked out the exact keyboard that I have, and it said this item is available on a website. I forget what it was, and it gave an approximate price. It was actually really cool. It was kind of scary at the same time. It'll also tell you I could point it at my dog, and it says Black Labrador Retriever. So similar to Seeing AI, Google Lens, it allows you to point your item, your phone camera at different items, and it will read those out to you when you've got your Talkback or your voice assistant turned on. Similar to Google Lens, again, going into the Samsung ecosystem is Bixby Vision. Both of those programs are great. As we saw with Seeing AI, when Miss Yvonne was trying to scan a barcode, it just did not, Seeing AI did not want to scan that barcode. Google Lens, Bixby Vision, same things. Just got to keep trying it, maybe point your phone a little bit differently. And sometimes there's little quirks with these particular pieces of software. One thing that I do really like about Google Lens, when you've got, again, when you've got your Talkback turned on, you can point your camera at a sign or say some kind of a billboard. And if you're visiting another country, there is an option for you to send that text into Google Translate, and it will translate from one language to another utilizing Google Translate. So that's kind of a nice seamless trick that you can use when you're traveling abroad. First runner-up app, I'm going to go with Bluemail. Bluemail is an email client that I've used for many, many years. It's very, very easy to use. It's very Talkback friendly. I'm running into less and less of the unlabeled button issues in Bluemail. It reads out your emails. It reads out any kind of subjects. If you have you can use a unified type of an inbox model, and it allows you to, I think I'm monitoring 3 different email boxes on my particular client, and it shows all of my inbox items in one view. So I can flick through, or I can explore by touch to all the different messages that I've got, have it read out what I want. I can select multiple different messages, and I can delete them all. I can archive them. I can move them to a folder. So it's got a lot of the basic features you would expect out of an email client. It's very, very powerful, very nice, free of charge, and it's been a really neat application to use. Second runner-up is something that I mentioned in our last podcast webinar, is Podcast Addict. Very, very blind friendly, very nice with Talkback and with Voice Assistant. I have sent in some bug reports to the developer. That developer's been very responsive and open to feedback and has worked with me to fix some bugs. Podcast Addict has all the basic features that you would expect out of a podcatcher. It allows you to, if your podcast supports chapters, it supports chapter selection, does your automatic downloading. You can download over Wi-Fi only if you want. You can categorize your podcasts into different categories. I've got a category set up for technical items. I've got one for Linux-based items. I've got one for old-time radio-based items, and so on and so forth. It's really a true pleasure to use Podcast Addict, and I've enjoyed it for many, many years. There's a lot of different apps out there on the Google Play Store, just like in the Apple Store. Go through the Google Play Store and you kind of experiment with some of the apps, and you see what you like, see what you don't like, and you stick with what you like, and then you go from there. So from there, I'd like to open it up to you folks for questions. I know we had a question from someone regarding inverting colors and different keyboards and whatnot. I saw something in the chat. I'd like to ask whoever asked that if you wouldn't mind asking a specific question. Are you looking to invert just the keyboard, just an application, or both? I'd like to start with that. And I think, Angie, I think you had typed that in for from someone. Let's see here.
I did, and they
Gotcha.
you can do both.
Okay, both. So the way the invert colors works, so Samsung in the very recent release of Android 10 has released a dark mode for your Android devices. So that allows you to interact with your device with a negative contrast or an inverted contrast, black background and white text for the most part. What that does is that also has your keyboard as a dark background, black background with white text on the keyboard. Now, when you invert your colors, say you run across a website that's a white background and black text, when you invert your colors, yes, it will invert the colors on your internet page that you're on. However, it also inverts the keyboard at that point. So now your keyboard is now white background on black text. So there's a few little tricks there that you have to use. Amazon, when I'm in the Amazon app, I like to do all of my searching with my normal color, with the light background and dark foreground, if you will. My keyboard is also, at that point, is black background and white text. I can see it. I can also hear what I'm typing with Talkback. But when I go in to actually view my results in the Amazon app, I'll invert the colors. And now, in this instance, that will also invert the keyboard if I needed to type something in. So you have to kind of go back and forth between the invert colors and kind of play with it.
And Dan?
Yes, sir.
There are also different keyboards you can use. So
Absolutely.
you have to deal with the invert part. And you can, and like if you're using a shortcut accessibility menu, then you can turn off the invert within like 2 seconds. But like there's a keyboard that I use that the keys are a lot bigger and they have a yellow background with black font. Go ahead, Dan.
Perfect. No, thank you, Issa. I appreciate that. There's just a vast number of different keyboards, third-party keyboards that you can install. My daughter has one that plays all kinds of tones, and it has different emojis on there that she can access. So there's a lot of different options that you can install for keyboards, because one doesn't work for one person, another one might work for you, or it might work for the other person, and you might be using different keyboards for different occasions, as Issa was saying. Are there any other questions that we can answer for you folks tonight?
And I don't see anybody's hands up at this time, so I think we've covered most of the questions.
Okay, excellent.
And Dan, there's other devices as well that works the same as Android devices. Like, I know we're talking about phones primarily, but for instance, I assist a lot of people with Fire Sticks, the Amazon Fire Stick. And that makes life a little bit better for someone to use their TV. If their TV is not so smart, for them to be able to put a Talkback on it. So using a Fire Stick, you can have, there's an accessibility menu in there as well, just in case for people that do have Fire Sticks, that you're able to control your TV with your remote, and you can hear what's going on and know where you are and where you're trying to go instead of trying to squint or get too close to the TV. So, for instance, I have the TV on now.
East server, 2 of 20. ESPN, West server, 3 of ESPN 2. 9. Fox Sports 1. Fox Sports 1 low, 6. To see your heroes. Home, 2 of 9. Rocketman, home, 2 live, 3 of 9. Your videos, 4 free, 5 of 9. Movies, 6. Rocketman.
So there's a lot of different things out there that Android supports for different APKs and stuff. I just wanted to let people know, because some people might have a Fire Stick and don't know that you can use the accessibility menu. Go back, Dan.
Absolutely, so thank you for that. That's a great point. All of your Amazon Kindles, or your Fire tablets, your Fire Sticks, those are Android-based devices. Amazon has done some heavy customization for them. and their version of a screen user, or excuse me, a screen reader is called VoiceBack, and they've worked really hard to make these different devices accessible. I take my Amazon Fire Stick everywhere I go when I travel, and it gives me something nice to be able to watch TV on if I'm not going to be watching something on my phone. If I just don't want to watch it on a small screen, like you said, it allows you to utilize a TV and really be able to customize it and use it without any kind of sighted assistance. Also, you don't have to get it right up on top of it if you have to squint on anything. With that, we'll kind of wrap things up. If nobody has any particular questions, I'll go ahead and turn it back over to Thomas. I want to thank everyone for your time tonight. Greatly appreciate being able to present this materials to you. If you have any questions at all, my email is going to be in the agenda that will be distributed afterwards. Please don't hesitate to reach out to Thomas or myself if you have any questions. If you'd like to take an Android class, please reach out to Aaron. And with that, Thomas, we'll turn it back over to you if there's no more questions.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I am not much of an Android user myself, so I'm glad we had some good experts to come and give us some information about that. I can sing and dance with my iPhone, but Android kind of leaves me confused. So I'm glad there are people who can make it work really well for them. If you do want some more information, or if you do have any further questions, please send me an email at thomas.stivers, that's S-T-I-V as in Victor, E-R-S, at austinlighthouse.org. I'll also put that into the chat. I will also send the agenda to everyone who emailed me last time, and to anyone who emails me this time, so that, and that contains the addresses for the rest of our presenters. So in the chat, we have a question about the next meeting. The next one is going to be a roundtable discussion about employment for people who are blind, some strategies for finding jobs, how and when to disclose your disability, how to make sure that when you do disclose your disability, it doesn't interfere with the interview, all kinds of topics around that. And we're going to make sure that we get as much information out there about finding and keeping jobs as we possibly can. Let's see, what did I? And also, before we wrap up, I'd like to thank Dr. Laura Miller and Northwest Hills Eye Care for sort of partnering with us and getting us in touch with your network of associates so that we can present our information. I hope that everyone who has found something helpful here tonight, and I hope to see you all again in 2 weeks to discuss employment opportunities. Angie, were you wanting to?
Yes, and I'm sorry, I should have raised my hand here. This is Angie, and I just want to say before we do totally wrap up, if there are any topics or any learning opportunities that you want to learn more about or have us present on, please definitely share that with Thomas on his email, and we can try to get a team so we can totally support the needs that you guys are wanting to hear about or learn more about.
All right. Well, with that said, and with a few awesome thanks in our chat, I will wrap it up. And thank you guys so much for coming. You are also awesome. Have a wonderful evening, and we'll catch you all in 2 weeks.
Have a good evening, guys. Take care.
Good night, everyone.
Cheers.